Hi, my name is Igor Boletsky. I'm the branch manager for Loxone US. We are here with Mike from Advanced Enviromation Inc. They are HVAC specialists and control specialists here in Reading, PA, and we're having a short conversation about what the situation of the current in the market with HVAC, with control. So, Mike, how long have you been in this field?
Roughly 15 years, I would say. When I kind of came into this industry by complete happenstance. I used to work in facility engineering, basically doing like CAD design, drafting, stuff like that. And then unfortunately, it was right when the market and the economy took a big downturn in 2008. So, by complete happenstance, I kind of got a job doing control work. At that time, I was doing mostly AutoCAD design and drafting again, but I started to delve into, the control world and understanding what DDC controls were and what actuators and valves and things like that were. So I very quickly started to realize, that at the time, I think my biggest concern was my job going to be sustainable, and knowing that the economy was really bad, automation and control was definitely something that we were booming. Whether it was like building new projects or renovating old buildings, it was always something that there was a lot of money, either through government grants or, private loans and stuff like that, we had a lot of money coming in. So it was definitely something that I delved into. And like I said, it's been 15 years now. So I guess you say I like it. Yeah, it's keeping me busy. So.
And what trend have you seen the market go into? Which direction with automation or control?
When I came into the industry, there was already a push for open source, open protocol systems. So that was kind of already established. I think for years, proprietary systems had been kind of the industry standard. So that was something that, through a lot of years, a lot of heartache, I think, from customer standpoints, where maybe you weren't getting the best service from your contractor. They kind of felt as though they were like leasing their system, meaning that they were stuck with a certain manufacturer. They didn't really have any avenue to break away from them. So they were kind of stuck. And the only way to get away from that system was to spend a lot of capital to basically rip it out and replace it with new. Now we focus primarily on open source systems. So like I said, when I came into the industry, that was something that was a big push. It's a big part of what we do. We don't put in anything that is proprietary because we want to make sure that our customers have control of their system. We feel that the onus should be on the contractor to do a good job, to put in good products and to support that. And if we're not, the customer should have every right to find another contractor. So from my experience, you're not going to find too many contractors that will say that because they want to put proprietary systems in because they like having that safety net of we've locked this customer in. But, we feel we're very good at our job and we're very good with our customers. So there's no reason why open source isn't a good option for us. So, as far as the industry itself, I think that's probably the biggest reason why it's trended towards the open source market. So you've got a lot of different players in the industry. You've got some of your big name guys, but there's always new products coming out that are giving you different opportunities, different control strategies and things like that. So myself included, I'm always trying to look out for what new technology is out there, because there's always stuff that's coming out new. From my experience, sometimes the old players in the industry can get very stagnated. They can kind of focus on what they've been doing forever. Sometimes the R&D or development isn't there. So you might be stuck with products that are 5, 10 plus years old. And the market's constantly evolving. It's always moving. So getting stuck with something that you've been using for 10 years, it can feel stagnated. You know what I mean? Whether it's the controllers are old and things like that. So, I think that's kind of why we try to focus on open source systems. And I think it's definitely growing. It's something that customers are becoming more aware of. Before I think there was a lot of naivete with control systems. It was kind of like, just don't worry about it. But with the energy crisis and people becoming more energy conscious, it's definitely something that building owners and facility managers are becoming aware of. So they want to have more influence on what is put in, and they want to know what their return is, right? Like ROI is a huge thing. So if I'm going to be spending all this capital to put something in, what's my payback? What am I looking at? It's not just like throw a control system in and forget about it, So those days are kind of long gone. So that's a long-winded way of saying that. So I apologize.
And how did you find us? How do you find Loxone?
So I'm kind of a control nerd at this point, if that's an okay word to use. Yeah, in my spare time, my wife always makes fun of me, but I'm usually online, always searching for different control strategies, building automation systems. And honestly, I think the algorithm got me, because I want to say I was on maybe Instagram, and Loxone popped up. And me being me, I just kind of like scrolling through the page, and I was like, wow, these products look really cool. I'm like, they're nice looking, they look well built. Next thing you know, I was on your website, digging through all the resources, and then as I went through, I think one of the things I noticed was I was highly impressed with the website itself, the layout, functionality of the website. I noticed that I could buy controllers and accessories right through your website. That I quickly found out that Loxone config was available for download. So that was the next step in the process. So it kept going down a rabbit hole. And then next thing you know, I had the software on my computer, and I was trying to figure out ways that we could kind of become a partner. And I think that's one of the things I think that kind of drew me in, was just everything was so readily available. The resources were readily available. And from my experience with other control manufacturers, like, you'd be amazed at how little documentation there is. And if there is documentation, it's extremely convoluted and hard to find. So I'm all about efficiency, and it's like whatever can get me in and out of the job as quickly as possible and get the job completed. It's like, I don't want to spend hours and hours commissioning a controller or trying to figure out how a function block works. Or it's like, I'm always trying to find manufacturers that are doing things that make our lives easier, and that's one of the things that, as playing around with config and after talking with you, and it's just been incredible to see that level of development on the back end. From a programmer standpoint, it's critical for our success moving forward. If we're going to be putting in products, that we have stuff we know we can trust, and that we know we have good resources and service, from your end. So that's kind of where it went. You know what I mean? So we're still new to the Loxone brand, but it's definitely something eager to try to get in as much as we possibly can, and use it wherever we can. Yeah. So.
What's your favorite part of the Loxone config?
I hate to use the word usability. Again, one of the things I noticed when I was using config was anytime if I'm using a function block, I use the word palette because that's what we use in our software. But when I drag a function block onto the wire sheet, there's immediately resources there that I can figure out how to use it. If I'm trying to drag something from the tree or link, like, I know right away there's intuitive things that are built into the software that suggest where that should go. So even somebody on an entry-level programming, skill level can figure their way through the programming. And that's huge. I'm a big person on user interface. I actually build the user interfaces for our system. So that's definitely something I look at right away. It's laid out very well. It's not convoluted and hard to kind of navigate. You have your property sheet on the left-hand side. You've got your tree and devices in the middle, and your wire sheet. So it's very easy to work through the software. And after downloading it, I was probably programming in config within 30 minutes. So that a big prop to your software development team. I mean, they did a really good job on that aspect of it. So I'd say usability. I don't know if there's a better term for it, but it's very user friendly, and I love that, because a lot of what we do, there's definitely manufacturers out there that don't have that. So that was big.
And you touched about the software being available on the website. Is that a standard or not a standard?
No, it's definitely not a standard. It's hard to teach old dog new tricks. With a lot of the old proprietary systems, there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. and there's, I don't want to say fees you have to pay. You have to become like a paid partner, licensing fees. There's all kinds of things that you have to kind of go through before you're able to even get your hands on the software. So that's kind of step one. So I was actually kind of shocked to see that the software was free. I was very surprised and pleasantly surprised. But I think it's great that it is, because I just don't like how locked down everything is on the commercial side. So if you decide you want to partner with somebody, it's like you have to pay exorbitant amount of fees just to become a partner. And then there's usually revolving fees that you have to pay for service and support. And that's even before you can even get into software. So it's like, how do I know I even want to use the software before I have to pay all these exorbitant fees? So it's like, you might find out after the fact, you paid all this money and now I don't even like this software, or it's very clunky and not efficient to use, or maybe even their product line is not that great. So it's one of those things when, as a business owner, you're trying to look at your cost benefit analysis. And it's like, okay, if we're going to partner with somebody, what are the pros? What are the cons? And the fact that Loxone makes everything so readily available to their customers and their partners, I think that was a huge perk, right out of the gate. So that it's definitely not an industry standard by any means. So.
And how do you find our hardware?
I like it a lot. I really do. The fact that you have the mini server, which has a ton of capability built inside of it. One thing I would say shocked or surprised about, but was the amount of extensions. I wasn't expecting to see all of that. When I first stumbled upon Loxone through Instagram, I thought at first that it might have been strictly for home automation. So I kind of wasn't sure to what level of involvement like the software like went into. I wasn't sure, if I would be able to control something on a commercial setting. But the fact that you have so many different extensions from AI extensions, DO extensions, you have all the IO capability and capacity that you need to meet your needs or requirements. But then you also have other things to integrate third-party devices or, lighting control and things like that. So, yeah.
Well, like Belimo.
Like Belimo, yes, Belimo is a big partner on the commercial side. So, I think you guys pretty much covered all your bases as far as the inputs, outputs, accessories that you could think of that can be attached or tied into the mini server. So the hardware side is just great. Yeah, I really like it.
And then I guess going back to the software with, you mentioned that you build your own applications for your customers. There, the visuals. How do you like the Loxone app, and what do you think? How friendly usability for commercial aspect is it?
I think it's definitely it's a great product. One of the things that we had talked about before was the fact that whenever I'm programming something, when I'm building applications for certain systems, whether it be a constant volume rooftop unit or maybe it's a VAV system or something, the fact that config builds the user interface for you is like monumental. In our systems, we have to go through an extra layer, an extra process where we have to build the program. And once we build the programming, basically, we have to then extract what we call proxy points. So like the backnet variables, we have to pull those out of the controller. And then through that, we build the graphical user interface. So now we can make really nice user interfaces, which is great. But again, it's the time that's consumed in programming and then all the time that's consumed in creating that user interface. So by using Loxone and config, all of that's built for me. So from a programming, again, I'm all about efficiency. So if I'm going into a job and I can literally shave half of my programming time off, why wouldn't I do that? It's kind of a no-brainer. So, and there's a lot of applications where we might be controlling pumps or maybe an air handler where we'll have a localized tablet or touchscreen. So having the application is huge because as soon as I'm done programming, everything is available right now. And from a user's perspective, the amount of times that I go through training sessions and I talk to customers or facility managers, they always want to know if there's an app, right? And now our graphics packages are built with HTML5. They work great. They're fine. They work in a browser, but sometimes what you have is scaling issues. So they might work well on a desktop, and maybe you can set like a scaling factor so it looks good on an iPad. But 90% of people use iPhones or some phone. So that's where you get into a situation where I might actually have to take the graphics package I built and create a duplicate graphics package or something that works better on an iPhone on a smaller resolution screen. So, yeah, I was very happy to see that was something that was integrated into Loxone, that when you're building the applications, the programming or the graphics are already built for you. I mean, that's huge. So I've literally never seen that. Like I said, I'm kind of a control nerd. I'm kind of always scouring the internet for different building automation systems and manufacturers. And I can say, at least from my perspective, I have yet to see anybody do that.
And then I guess in your world of control of HVAC and climate, what other problems do you experience that maybe Loxone can solve for?
I would say out of the gate, I would say cost is one thing. Now, it varies on manufacturer. I mean, there are some things where maybe Loxone might be, their devices and hardware might be a little bit more expensive, but there's other times where they may be the less expensive option. The big thing that we're seeing now, and it's kind of started, I'd say within the last 5 to 7 years, is everyone's going towards a subscription-based model. AutoCAD went that way, Adobe went that way, Microsoft has gone that way, and it's a way to get the hooks on the customers to just have like revolving income. There's certain aspects where I can understand why they'd want to see some of that, because in the background they're doing R&D to develop new products and software tools and things like that. But at the end of the day, you're never going to get rid of the stigma from the customer where they have to continually pay for their system. And I can tell you firsthand, I mean, when I talk to a customer and it's like, hey, here's your amazing system. Oh, by the way, there's a maintenance agreement to keep your license activated. Otherwise, you'll lapse in coverage and you have to backfill. There's no customer to date that has been excited to hear that. They want to buy their system and that's it. If they need to upgrade, that's fine. But when customers hear that they have this revolving cost, that's definitely a detriment to a lot of commercial systems. So I think cost is probably the first thing I would notice. Obviously, given the state of the world over the last few years, costs have, ballooned quite a bit. And from what I've seen, at least from Loxone, you guys have done your very best to maintain the cost structure, which is very much appreciated on our end, as well as the customer. I would say probably the second biggest thing as far as issues are concerned would be, and this is probably one of my biggest frustrations I talk to my guys about all the time, is, again, harping back on what tools are manufacturers making that make my life easier. Because it's not like I'm trying to, have the easiest job in the world. I know I'm a systems integrator, I'm a programmer, there's a certain level of technicality that's required to do that job. So I'm not trying to have a wizard for everything, but it's the things that Loxone has built into their software, I think, that help a lot of kind of back-end nuanced things that, like the auto config. There's things that you can do that just help you get the job done faster. And one of the frustrations I have with newer tools that come out is you get all happy because you think it's this new product that's going to be great. It's you can't wait to get your hands on it, and then you find out that it's just as bad as the previous version. Or maybe to commission a controller, there's even more steps involved into commissioning a controller. So it just seems like over and over and over again, these manufacturers are trying to push products to market, and the back end things are not necessarily figured out the best. You kind of get a sense like we're beta testers all the time. And we always are calling tech support. It's like, well, what's this issue? What's this issue? And they've never seen that before. And it's like, as a controls integrator, I feel like I shouldn't be the one finding all these problems, right? That's why they're tested in the factory, right? So by the time I get them, you're never going to get rid of every issue, but I shouldn't have blaring problems or glaring problems right out of the gate, and that's a big headache for me. And I honestly, I think that's kind of what drives me to like search the internet to try to find other solutions, because that is largely one of the biggest frustrations I had. It's like we get to a job You have to commission a controller. And like, for example, the software that we use, whenever there's a new firmware, a new revision, I have to install that new software on my computer. So it's not even like the firmware package that's released. I can update that into my installation. I have to install an entirely new version. So now think about that. If I commission a controller to a certain version, well, it's stuck at that version. And now if I want to take it up, I have to install a new version on my computer and then recommission the controller, right? Well, we have how many different customers? They don't all get updated at the same time. So now I could have 20 to 25 different versions of the same software on my computer because I have to have coverage for every customer, right? And that ties back into that software maintenance agreement, because if they're not active with their maintenance agreement, I can't take them up to the next version. They then have to pay to activate the new license agreement. And that way I can download the new license, I can install the new firmware.
So they're stuck.
They're stuck. And that part is very frustrating. And it's like, how are you supposed to sell that to a customer, right? I mean, we're all human. It's like, I know as a contractor, like if somebody came to me and said like, well, here's a great system, you have to keep paying for it. If you don't, you can't upgrade the firmware. And there could be a massive glitch in that firmware where maybe the scheduling, block doesn't work. Well, then what do? Well, you're kind of stuck. You have to pay for it. There's a lot of that built into it. So you can kind of see like what would lead me to, just seeing what else is out there. It's not like what we use is terrible. It's great. I mean, a lot of the stuff is really good. It's just what other areas can be improved, and maybe, like I said, if there's things like Loxone out there that fill those gaps, you know what I mean, and make my life a lot easier and make my guys' a lot easier, because again, I'm programming, and if it takes me 4 or 5 years to become a proficient programmer, well, what's coming out that's going to help my guys become even more proficient? I don't want to have to spend 4 or 5 years to get everybody up to speed, right? Because now if we're looking at staffing issues and trying to grow, again, it comes back to what are the manufacturers doing to help us? I can't hire a guy and say, well, you don't know how to program. I have to pay you for 5 years until you can actually go program a job. You know what I mean? So all of that kind of ties together, and it definitely is something, it makes it challenging for us, you know what I mean? So that's kind of why we're always keeping our eyes open and seeing what else is out there. And if there's other ways to do things better, we're all for it. So.
Yeah. Also, as an integrator, I know that you not only do control of HVAC, you also do other lighting and things like that. How do you find it right now in the current situation, how easy it is or how hard it is to bring the systems together? And can Loxone help in that situation or?
Yeah, for sure. Again, it all depends on what systems are installed. I mean, typically a lot of times what we'll find and what we've done in the past is a customer might just have simple time clocks with lighting contactors. Well, digital outputs are digital outputs. You can control them fairly easily and straightforward. Where it gets more complex is when they have communicating lighting systems, like Loxone, for example. I mean, there's a bunch of them out there, but they talk on a proprietary system. So that makes it a challenge to try to take over. We just recently looked at a job where they wanted to upgrade their system. They had been given a price for Loxone, and I'm sure the costs were exorbitant. So they came to us to see what we could do. And we actually, proposed a Loxone product for them, or Loxone system for them, because again, it's using something that's open source. It's commonly sourced, like the signal types or 0 to 10 volt DC. There's no reason why we have to lock that up in no proprietary system. So, I would say every job presents its own challenges, but trying to get rid of the proprietary systems is probably the biggest thing. And Loxone is definitely an avenue to get in there because of the wide range of lighting control technologies that you have built into your platform. It makes it a lot easier for us to pull that into our system, and I would say, at least from my experience in HVAC and building automation, it's something we can do. It's, we can control 0 to 10 volt signals. We can, modulate lights. We can turn them on and off. I would say the tool sets built into Loxone's ecosystem are a lot more advanced when it comes to lighting control. That's one of the biggest things I noticed out of the gate was if we're going to try to tackle this with what we use all the time, it's going to be very costly, and it's going to require a lot of nuanced programming, maybe that we don't typically do, whereas a lot of that is already solved within Loxone. So it's something from a programming standpoint and a pricing standpoint that it's more efficient to use Loxone, and it gives you an avenue to kind of break into that market. So, yeah. So hopefully that answered your question.
I
So,
really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for,
absolutely. Appreciate
taking the time. Yeah.
So it's a pleasure talking with you.
Pleasure talking to you as always.